While I get this plugged in, I'd just like to introduce myself as Joe HUDICKA, and I am a recovering geek. So it took me many years to learn how to speak to people again, because in my first phase of my career, I felt compelled to become a really strong technologist, and I forgot how to speak to anything other than a computer for a little while. So if anybody starts, feeling that I'm going a little too techy, just glaze over for me, all right? Just give me that glaze over look so I know. That's my signal. Got it? Cool? All right, excellent. So first of all, congratulations. How awesome is this? You're here, right? I mean, there's commutes of 100 miles each way, right? I mean, the commitment, the dedication, the focus, it's just absolutely outstanding. And
on time. Always on time. And early. No, he was early. And dressed like that. He was early.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and dressed like that.
Well, when I was here and I was completing my degree, and I took a red eye in, and I got in about 4 hours before the walk, and we did it outside at that time. Thank God it didn't rain. There was a question that I was thinking about, and the question that I was thinking about was, what will my MBA do for me? That's where I was. What will it do for me? This is where I got to. It took me a little while. But what I did, as I continued to explore throughout my journey, I began to learn more and more. Each stage of learning that I engage in is not about what I'm picking up and what it's going to do while I sit by and watch it. It's what can I do to leverage it as a catalyst for whatever these next steps are going to be and experiences. And so I put together some cards and pencils, and I put them around chairs. Now, you don't have to use them. It's your choice, okay? But I'm going to invite you, as I tell you a little bit more about me, to maybe consider reflecting on your top 3 life goals. Top 3 life goals. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about mine first, okay? And I'm also going to work real hard to stay behind this podium, which, as you can tell, is not very easy for me. But my top 3 goals are creating businesses that I love to be in, investing the majority of my time in family and friends, okay? And promoting strength-oriented learning. Those are my top 3 life goals. And I work throughout my life to understand what they are, to refine what they are, and then to actually really commit to them. Not just things that are in thought, but things that I'm putting into action in every decision that I make in life, personal, professional, whatever, leveraging them as my test. Am I on track? Now, I will also tell you that along that journey, I had a business coach once that he had this added years exercise. It was a way to think about your life and reframe it. Now, I can talk to you later on during the networking session if anybody's interested in how that works, but suffice to say that I very quickly, for whatever reason, landed on the number 141 years, and that literally is the amount of time that I have mapped out in my life plan. An interesting little anecdote about it, if you can read the fine print down there, when I get there, I'm going to see one of the most awesome times there would be, this repeating pattern of 12, 21, 12, 21, 12, 21. I don't know why, but it came to me very quickly. And I can explain the process and really the overall impact and benefit of it if you'd like to talk about it a little later. But where my journey began was not even a half hour from here, in a little town called Manville. It was a factory that brought my family there, a little place called John's Manville, and building number 9, actually, the asbestos building. Thank God, I thank God every day that I still have my dad with me who worked there, and the things that I've been able to learn from his journey. But there was an interesting thing that I learned to do, particularly when I came through my MBA program. And that was to start looking at how I live my life in using some of the tools that we learned in school. Has anybody ever drawn a chart on your life experiences? Anybody? Right. Who's going to do that? You ever draw it for a business? Yeah, of course. Right? So humor me. I'm going to use this throughout the session this evening. And, you know, if you see something in there that is relevant for you, awesome. If not, okay. That's okay too. But I'll tell you, when I was in high school, right, and I began thinking about this kind of goal concept, I already discovered something about myself. My goals were always ridiculous. They were always like, there's high, right, and then there were my goals. They're always way out there and very consistent. My career starting point was really at ground zero, right? But I was trying to understand who I was going to be when I grew up, because at this point I'm being told I've grown up, right? And so something happened early on for me, and it was the introduction to technology. Now, it started with toys, right? There were things I could play with. Then there were things that I could actually tell what I wanted it to do. And the excitement kind of built as I went from each one of these devices to the next device. And I felt like my career was already growing. I felt like I was on a track. But then came my first innovation insight of my career. And I'm going to share several of these with you, okay? Innovation insight number one. I'm here, I'm on campus, and I'm heading back for a visit home. It's a Friday night. And I found my dad in a state I'd never seen him before. His head in his hands crying, okay? At the table. This company he worked for almost 40 years, okay? Shut down. That morning, he went to work 5:30 a.m., just like he always showed up before the sun even came up. Locks and chains on the doors. Management consultant on the landing, announcing, "Congratulations," essentially. You're on your way to a new life. Except it wasn't a choice, and it wasn't a celebration. They were out-innovated. This company that he had worked for 40 years continued to leverage the same equipment, the same technology, the same processes in 1980-something, right, that they were using in 1950-something, okay? And so, surprise, surprise, someone figured out how to make those products a little bit faster. Somebody figured out how to make them a little bit better. Somebody figured out the logistics to get this stuff where it needed to be faster and more efficiently, right? But it wasn't the company my dad was working for. And so, as quickly as I thought my career was taking off, is just as quick as it felt like it got shattered. Because this dream, this prescribed notion of what life was, you know, that I was raised on. You get your degree, you get a great job in a company, you're going to stay there 40 years. At the time, there was this gold watch thing that they would tell you about. And I thought it was going to be like awesome. And here, I didn't get to the starting line. I didn't even get out of college yet. And already that dream got shattered. So I learned that first insight: create your own reality. Create your own reality. Now, back on that technology thing for a minute. I was super lucky because where I was going to school was right here. And the strongest relationships that I had developed as influencers to me, as educators, are here right now. Still to this day, many. I see Dr. Amadio. And yes, you know, Ron, thank you so much for the several insights and things that we've shared over the years in between these steps in the journey. But you know what? Truth be told, when I was picking my school, I did leverage what I knew about technology, and I wanted to use it to solve business problems. I understood that. My dad, on the other hand, he was convinced that by buying me those pieces of equipment back then, I would learn how to write some lottery algorithm for him to pick the numbers. So there was a little bit of a conflict there, right? But, you know, nevertheless, it did help steer me in the right direction. And that right direction had a miracle show up right within the same week, essentially, as that crushing experience my family had endured. And that insight was to leverage technology. I immediately raced back to campus after that situation. I went to the library. I took photocopies of the magazines, the tech journals, the covers to say, this is what the world's looking to do right now. And I went and I met with faculty and peers, and I said, look, here's the gap. Here's what I see the world looking for. Here's what we can learn right now. How do we close this gap? Within a week, this little box of software showed up on campus. and it had this word Oracle on the side. Suffice to say, it didn't take much more effort for me to jump right in and learn this. And the experience of jumping on an emerging technology, it's like a wave, and I don't surf, but that was the analogy that it felt like. Catching that magic wave before, it passes you by. And so the learning experience was phenomenal and super powerful. And in fact, to the degree where I actually started doing something that was really uncharacteristic for me in my personal life, I was buying books. And I started reading books. And I know you can't really see it in the background there. This is going to be one of those two little geek parts, by the way. I became really obsessed with process and data modeling. I was always thinking about the world through these pictures that could translate things. And my friends in that little Minville town started asking me, you're doing all this traveling, you're going to these cool places, how is it happening? And I got really excited to start trying to teach them. And I literally still have the first data model that a couple of my friends back in '94, began to start designing with my attempt to start teaching them how this works. And it was of all things, pick something they were interested in. And that thing was fantasy sports. Well, there's a little clipping there, and you probably can't read what happened. But the very first fantasy sports league franchise technology was purchased roughly about 18 months after we started this process, and they had actually begun the business, I think, a little while after that. It was about a $100 million acquisition, and no, it wasn't us. So there's more innovation insights here than just my desire to learn to teach, but the focus, the energy that I was getting out of that experience was just phenomenally powerful. And so I was looking at this book, right? This book that I was carrying around all that time, and then it made me start thinking. It made me start thinking about other books. But not just any books. Books like Dr. Amadio's, the very first person that still always with me on my desk. Very first author that I met, right? That I learned from, that I got to collaborate with, that I got to come back time and time again as I was coming up with wacky statistical models on predictive analytics for, dismissing sales or displacing salespeople, right? Like all kinds of crazy ideas, and always there to go over these crazy ideas and figure out how to apply them. And Olga Rogers. Literally the first person I met the first day on my professional job after I graduated. It was literally 2 days after graduation. Now, this is a big insight in terms of leading thought, okay? Olga, sadly, is no longer with us anymore physically. But Olga's impact is timeless because she leveraged her gifts, her thought, her experiences, and she produced timeless content. So I took a deep breath and said, well, maybe I could do that, right? And I reached around and I tried, and I was lucky enough to be part of my very first book, which even showed up in another language. And if anybody has a question about language superiority, I could tell you that I'm pretty sure that some flavors of Chinese must be much more efficient than English. Or you might not want to listen to my whole talk. I'm not sure where the value proposition, began and ended on that. But, writing it and having my thought kind of stand out separate, I realized wasn't the end of that innovation cycle. There had to be something more. And that's when I learned to stand up if I wanted to stand out. It's not enough to have the great ideas. It's not enough to publish the ideas. Get out there and share those ideas, because that's where the next ideas come from. Just in the group that we're going to be in tonight, we're going to be having all sorts of conversations. People are going to have ideas. Someone's got a challenge that they're working on. And it's that collaboration. It's that communication. That's where good ideas become great ideas. And so I got out on the speaking circuits. I even learned after a while you can get paid for some of that stuff. I had no idea. And Dr. Shiganti's not here right now, but I even was lucky enough to successfully exit and sell my first technology business, all in that same era. So working through following your goals and visions and making sure your efforts are in alignment, right, work just the same personally as they do professionally. Until that eToys thing happened. Now, what could be more awesome for me? I was on the top of the technology that I loved. I was doing the kinds of things that I loved. And now I get to play with toys. They were 100-hour plus work weeks in the dot-com era. But who cares? These companies are going public. There's all kinds of exciting things going on every single day. But there was another innovation insight that had to be learned there. Results matter. Now, when I walked out of that experience, first I should say I walked in as a consultant. It was my company that was brought in because they called me on a Friday and they said, come here Monday because we're going public next Thursday and we need to get off all this shareware technology because that's not really good for shareholders. And so, it was that kind of rapid turnaround nonsense that you had to endure. Well, I was at the technical level then. I forgot how to talk to people. Right? I didn't realize what was going on at the business level. I didn't realize that there were just, it was one round of investment after another without any sense of profitability or results. And if I fast track from that experience, looking at, the model of the NASDAQ at that time, you can go right across and see, well, eToys rose and fall very quickly. Their IP was acquired by KB, but KB fell almost as quickly. And anybody that's got a kid somewhere in their life these days, or at least, keeps tabs on the market, knows that Toys R Us is rapidly following suit right now, right? So that was a break. That was a timeout window for me to really discover what's really important in my life. And I finally added a third line to my chart. I wasn't thinking consciously enough about my personal life experiences and what they meant to me and how that aligns to my overall life mission and purpose. And I was so blessed to be able to have 2 children brought into the world, and that's Joey and little Heidi right there. And being able to take that time and really be able to invest in that experience, the family together, the community together experience, was very, very eye-opening because it started teaching me that my goals weren't strictly that orange line. That wasn't my pass or fail on a daily basis. I got more in tune. I got more conscious about it. But regrettably, I ran into a major health issue. It was a chronic cough. It stopped me from being able to do what I'm doing right here with you. I could not do any of that public speaking anymore. All the things that I enjoyed, even the basis of my income, being a professional business consultant, couldn't do any of it anymore. The stage was empty. I couldn't be there. I couldn't deliver. And so I thought, geez, I'd just find a safe place. And that was moving into my next innovation insight. Now, my safe place at the time, bear in mind, .com went to .bomb, 9/11 happened, and companies were not saying the word innovation anymore. Companies were not trying to do new innovative things. It was business continuity, disaster recovery, right? I picked the federal government as the safe harbor. Anybody ever work with or for the federal government? Not a lot of innovation, right? I blew it on that one. But I learned a lot along the way at that particular moment, and I was leveraging the experiences professionally to, interact with some crazy cool ideas that our kids were having. So you see Joey sitting up there, and that's a picture, if I'm not mistaken, from when he was interviewed by Inc. magazine when he was 8 years old, right? Because this kid invented a strategy game when he was 5, but that wasn't good enough for him. Because by the time he turned 7, these iPhones came out, right? And he saw it and asked the next question, do you think we can make an app out of this? And the answer was, well, let's Google it. And away we went. And next thing we knew, he went from 1 app to 2 apps, and he's got customers in more countries than I'm probably ever going to get to visit. Right? So, be remarkable. Don't not do things just because it seems weird to people. If it feels right and it looks right, put the effort in. Explore the creativity. I'm going to ask a quick question here. On a creativity scale, 0 to 100%, Tony, you can't answer. On a scale of 0 to 100%, how much creativity do you think we have as adults? Just throw out numbers. 25? 40. 80. 10. You guys are so generous. So there was a study that was done real quick in the 60s, and it was done for NASA, because at the time NASA was trying to come up with a secret formula to hire the most creative engineers. Creative engineer. Put those two together and have that make sense, right? Hire the most creative engineers. And in going through that experience, he was so fascinated by the results that he created a way of studying with children. And he produced this longitudinal study. And so here's what he found, real quick. Children at 5 years old have mastery of 98% of their creativity. By the time they're 10, it's down to 33%. By the time they're 18, it's down to 12. And all of us here, we've got about 2% of our creativity. That muscle is just something we learn to not use as effectively and efficiently as we can. It's there. It's just another muscle we're not leveraging. Yeah, my kids have a field day with that one. They love delivering that message at their events. And so that leadership, those experiences, while we were just trying to do good things with our kids and help them learn the power of their creativity, help them learn to shield from the kinds of ways industry will disrupt them in their careers, based on what I saw happen in the prior generation, what I was feeling in my own generation, they went and turned around and started making it a lot bigger. So I got a quick question for you guys. Can I get 5 volunteers? Real quick. Play a little game with me. 5. Give me 5 hands. You don't even have to run up. I'll come out to you. You hold that. You hold this. Charles?
Yeah.
Great to meet you.
You as well.
Grab one of these.
Inside there?
Yeah. Got it? I need 2 more. All right. All right. All right, grab one. Too many. You know what?
Anything in here?
Any one of them.
Oh, okay.
Got it?
Yeah.
Okay, so people with the dice, just flip it over. I know you can't really use it that way, so pretend, simulate. Hold one side and just tell me what's on it.
Animals.
Animals. Okay. Well, you got water? Okay. Okay, so we got animals and water. Okay? So, we're going to work together, the 5 of you, and we're going to invent a product or experience that's going to help animals in water. You ready? Okay, we're not there yet. What's on your tile? Pad. Pad? Okay. What's on your tile?
Tie.
Tie. Pad, tie, sounds like a good meal. Pad, tie, and?
Horn.
Pad, tie, and horn. So we need to invent something, product or experience, that benefits animals in water that incorporates a pad, a tie, and a horn. You ready? 90 seconds. How does that feel? Come on.
You just say it?
Yeah, go for it.
What if you were to poke a hole through a pad with the horn and then tie it onto the tie and then tie that onto the animal stuck in the water and pull it out?
Does everyone see what just happened here?
And she's 13.
Did everybody see what just happened here? Huh? Okay. Now, that was beautiful. That was awesome. Don't lose the power of your creativity. Don't let that go away, okay? That was phenomenal. And you, sir, you were dying to get it out. I was watching. It was there. It was there. You were so close.
I had it too, but
It was, oh.
talking about Norwells, because they're one.
Yeah, there you go. And that's the point. It's silly. It's hysterical. It's out of context, and that's why it works. That's why it works, right? You don't even need a game to do it, right? But the game proves the point very quickly. So much so that it was kids that created this, right? And they created it because they came home one day and said, our friends don't have a clue what we're talking about when we talk about our businesses. That's probably a pretty rational statement, right? But now, it's literally, it's helping kids of all ages, even our ages. It's pretty remarkable stuff, right? Well, what do you do? How? How do you leverage your ideas and your creativity? Well, the first part of that is building community around it, okay? Learn from my mistakes. Don't run out and start building something. The thing you build is community. You get people together. You share thought. You collaborate on those concepts. You learn what's great about it. You learn what could be better about it, right? And you do that through an innovation process of discovery before you ever put real effort, real resources in. Again, I've learned from those mistakes. These children here, we've got another pretty well-known rider alum sitting up there that literally canceled a trip to be a part of Joey and Heidi's first community event, to speak to families together about the power of their creativity and the importance of learning about business and entrepreneurship while you're young, okay? New Jersey Manufacturing Extension Program, like, it doesn't make sense, right? Like, these are not things that we should even try to do, yet look at the impact that comes out of it. But in working through that, maintaining the perspective of achieving life balance. Every time something professionally wasn't going the way I wanted it to, I was turning more and more towards our family and the magic that was happening there every step of the way. Sometimes things happen that you can never be prepared for. And less than 2 years ago, mine happened to me. New Hope is a beautiful little town, right? It was the last day of school. And it was beautiful, beautiful day. We call it a Hermosa day from when my wife and I used to live in Southern California. Beautiful blue sky. And we went and picked up my daughter. I said, you know, let's go do something fun. And we drove down to New Hope and we had an incredible walk together. But down that sidewalk, that little sidewalk, something happened that forever changed our experience. And thank God, I thank God we're all here. Okay? But everything we planned would mean nothing with just a couple millimeters difference in what we experienced that day. And that's hard to deal with. When you're an innovator, when you have a big goal line, and you're always thinking way out here, all these awesome experiences to have and impacts to make, it's hard to face the fact that there's things you can't change. And to build a life with purpose that's going to be resilient regardless, that's going to be timeless regardless. And finding the good is hard to do, but needs to be part of our overall life discipline every step of the way. And so the way I like to look at it, I like to look at it as fueling growth. I like to look at it as my energy and my spirit is the fuel. And anybody that has an idea and wants to have a conversation about it and wants to be able to test it and explore what could possibly happen, I'm there in a heartbeat, whether I know about that industry or not. Because it's an opportunity to fuel that advancement, fuel that creativity, make that impact, show people a difference that they can make. And then aim higher, wherever that goal line is. See how much further you can stretch it. Because here's why. The name of that game that you see there, when our kids created it, they named it World Changer Challenge. World Changer Challenge. With an exclamation mark. Everything we do is an exclamation mark. You know what? You know what everybody told us? And when I say everybody, entrepreneurs, business owners, educators, parents, everybody but kids. That's what I mean by everybody. Everybody told us, World Changer Challenge, that's too big. That's too big of a name. Nobody's going to gravitate to that. That's not going to make sense to anybody. It's too big. Well, you know what the reality is? It wasn't big enough. Right? It wasn't big enough. Because that journey and that experience of continuing to do what we were trying to do just to help 2 children become resilient, become recession-proof, learn how to be disruptive innovators, learn how to not just focus on the incremental gain, learn how to make the real impact in life. Why? Because just about every job description that I see come through my companies or my customers' logs these days, they assume that everyone's an innovator now. Every position assumes. The titles say, or the descriptions say, you're here to improve or eliminate. Maybe they don't use those words, but read it closely. You're here to make it better, make it different, or make it go away, right? So if that assumption's already out there, what else can we do to be teaching the skills of innovation and how to really make that happen? And I'm so blessed to be part of this community who's working hard every single day making that possible and delivering that kind of education. Because we can't afford to let it just happen. And I'll tell you what, I promised I wasn't going to do too much geek talk, but I did slip one more word in there, and it's that little blockchain word that's hidden down the bottom. Because even though I've had the pleasure of being part of several disruptive technology industries for enterprise software and enterprise computing over the years, this one right here is having the greatest impact. It's a cloud-based global supply chain, transportation, logistics app solution, okay? It's leveraging the best of emerging technologies like blockchain and completely turning the entire peer-to-peer communication experience on its ear. It's completely disrupting how the financial payment experience happens, from being highly reactive to proactive, smart contract based. Look, so far I didn't even get technical yet, Phil. I'm doing good on it, right? Finally. Took me a while. But I never would have been a part of this. This would not have been a part of my journey if it weren't for those two kids a couple of years ago inventing a board game and saying, Mom, Dad, we want to see our game manufactured. We don't want it to just show up in a container. We want to go to a factory. We want to see this stuff created. And through that journey, among many other things, I found another innovation insight. Seek strategic byproducts. No matter what your goals are, no matter what you're doing any particular day, make sure you're watching the periphery. Because sometimes the experiences that are popping up next to you end up being more aligned with who you are and who you want to be, the impact that you want to make, than the original goal you're even going after. Okay? And that's what I refer to as strategic byproducts. And yeah, I'd be more than happy to talk about blockchain later on with you guys if you'd like to. But hopefully I didn't spend too much time on the tech stuff. So why did I title tonight's conversation with you guys "Charting Your Bright Line Success Path"? It is the path to your bigger future. We're not just on a wheel, right? We're not just running by somebody else's goals or whatever our business objectives are. Tony had a beautiful way of summarizing it. He always uses at least 2 criteria whenever he makes a strategic life decision. I was so grateful. I ran right home and shared that with my wife, Laura, when you had told that to me, because, that always makes sure you got a sounding board, that you're not getting persuaded by any external, mission and objective entirely, that you maintain balance in that, because it is the way to your personal bigger future. So yeah, we're crazy, we're cool, we like to do neat stuff, and I really thank you guys for playing along, the 5 that were brave enough to enjoy and join in on the World Changer Challenge. And I wish you all as much luck and joy as I've had the pleasure to be able to experience. And if I don't see you here at upcoming events, I'll probably chase you down too, because this is really where the magic starts for you guys. And it's really where you're going to be able to not only build your bigger futures, but you're going to be able to help mentor and inspire each next class coming up. Okay? I thank you very much for your time.